Hello everyone and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. We join you today from the OSU Research Station at Marshall, where in just a few weeks, a new round of cattle on wheat studies will begin right in this pasture. Meantime, we wanted to get an update on the crop. Here's SUNUP's Dave Deacon and our Northwest area agronomist, Josh Bushong.
Well, Josh, let's just dive into it. How does the wheat crop look across Oklahoma so far?
Well, Dave, for the most part, we've been blessed with some rains throughout September. Some guys got 2 or 3 different rain showers over the last 4 weeks. So we've had a lot of wheat go in the ground over the last 3 weeks. A lot of guys going after that dual purpose, get some fall pasture out of this wheat crop. And our rye and triticale acres are up as well. Obviously, we had some issues getting that forage production, but with that moisture, the crop that has been planted is off to a good start. Over half of our acres are almost already planted by this time. As we know, Oklahoma, for the most part, anywhere 1/3 to almost 2/3 of the wheat crop is usually for that dual purpose. And with the commodity prices the way they are, a lot of farmers are cashing in on that option to dual purpose to get a little beef production off those acres. So we had a lot of guys going into the planting season wanting some good fall pasture. And for the most part, we've had some pretty good success getting it up and going. But there have been some issues with insects, and some heavy rain showers have caused some crusting issues as well. Utilizing systems like no-till so you can get more infiltration of that rain to capture it, to use for the next crop, are some management options the farmer needs to look at. Using clean till, it'll slick off and we'll have a lot more runoff, so we won't be able to utilize those heavy rainfall events. But for the most part, even this place planted a couple weeks ago had 1.6 inches or so right a couple days after we planted it, and we have pretty good stands here as well. So
let's talk about that. I mean, we're here by Marshall, Oklahoma, and you guys are doing trials on not only dual purpose wheat, but also there will be grain only wheat planted back there.
This is a long-running historical site. On this quarter, we'll move this trial around, but we do a variety trial under a dual purpose scenario where we plant early to try to get that fall vigor, that fall growth. And then also we look at the same variety trial under a grain only system. So on the back there, it's not planted yet. Like I said, this was planted 2 weeks ago. We get a pretty good response on responding from that grazing. How can it handle those stresses? And kind of long term, we've seen one of the major impacts on a producer if they're really after a grain crop. It's not so much the grazing pressure limiting that yield, it's the planting date. As you can see in the background there where we haven't planted the grain only plot yet, we have a lot of weeds out there. So planting later, we can avoid a lot of insect issues like we've had with fall armyworm and grasshoppers, and also weed pressures. If we get those flushes of weeds up and either chemically fallowed with herbicide or with tillage, we can get a lot of those weeds to flush and terminated before we plant the wheat crop.
Josh, what are some of the concerns and some of the options for those producers that are thinking about coming off of a summer crop onto wheat?
As we've seen the last couple of years, we've seen an increase in summer crops, and they've done fairly well. We've been getting some good rains, good temperatures throughout the summers. As those farmers shift a few more acres to those summer crops, they have to have that foresight on if they really want fall pasture, they still have to leave some ground for wheat. Those late planted acres are still an option if we got good moisture, soil moisture. So evaluate the farm after you've harvested that summer crop and be realistic on what options you have.
Okay, well, thank you much, Josh Bushong, the area specialist for Northwest Oklahoma. And for more information on wheat production in Oklahoma, go to our website, sunup.okstate.edu.
Hello, Wes Lee back with your Mesonet weather report. Cloudy skies are playing havoc on hay producers who are trying to get late season cuttings to cure properly. Nowhere is this more apparent than to the state's alfalfa crop. There is a very good price being paid to producers who can put up premium quality hay bales. The longer it takes to dry, the less chance it has of reaching this top quality ranking. If we look back to the 1st of August, we see that percent sunshine versus the long-term average has been consistently below normal, the black line. Over that same period of time, we also see relative humidity running about 10% above normal. We currently do not have a model for determining hay drying time. However, there is one weather measurement that might be useful to producers. Pan evaporation is calculated using all of the weather parameters useful for hay drying except soil moisture. Theoretically, high evaporation levels could mean good hay drying conditions. Here we see that over the past 2 months, evaporation was indeed well below normal. Right now, it may be more important than ever for hay producers to pay extra attention to weather forecast conditions before firing up the swather. Next, Gary is going to tell us more about the state's current weather situation.
Thanks, Wes, and good morning, everyone. Well, sometimes you just can't win. We come off one of the wettest Septembers on record, where the Fitztown Mesonet site saw the second highest daily rainfall total in state history, and much of the southern part of the state got from 5 to 10 inches of rain, but drought increases in parts of the state. Let's get right to that new drought monitor map and see what we have. Well, as you can see in the southwest, that drought area is starting to shrink more and more. Now we just have a smaller area of severe drought surrounded by moderate drought and a little bit of abnormally dry conditions. And that area continues to shrink and improve. However, when we go to the northeast, we see an increase in the severe and moderate drought and also a wider area of abnormally dry conditions. Those are the places that just plain missed out on the good rains during September. Now let's take a look at the departure from normal rainfall map for September, and that'll show you where we had the good rains, the catastrophic rains, and then the places without the good rain. Well, it's pretty easy to see in those blue areas down in south central Oklahoma, centered on Pontotoc County, where they had about 14.5 inches extra for the month. And we had a wide area from 4 to 6 inches above normal all across the southern parts of the state. Well, let's take a look ahead. The outlooks for temperature from the Climate Prediction Center see increased odds for above normal temperatures across the southeastern U.S., including Oklahoma, especially eastern Oklahoma, while the October outlook for precipitation sees increased odds of above normal precipitation for the entire state as well. So possibly a warm and wet October. That would be good for drought eradication. So the final outlook is the October drought outlook from the Climate Prediction Center, and it sees drought improvement in those areas across the state, in the southwest and also the northeast, possible removal. The only place they see drought remaining would be in the far western panhandle, but I think after this week that area might be okay as well. So the fall rains, if they keep coming, we'll be out of drought. We just need it to fall in the right places. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
Kim Anderson, our crop marketing specialist, joins us now. Kim, another quiet week in the grain markets. The big question, is this a good thing?
I think it's a good thing, especially in light of that wheat exports are 37% below last year. That's hard red winter wheat exports. The USDA is projecting even exports for the years are the same as last year. We got a lot of export demand to make up. You look at corn, we've got a near record world production. We got record US production. You got that much corn being harvested in steady prices. I think that's a good thing. You look at soybeans, record world harvest going on, record U.S. harvest. Again, a lot of soybeans, and soybean prices actually had a little increase in them this week. That's a good thing. Cotton is the question. Slightly lower, well, it's level prices in cotton, but that cotton's been stepping down, and so steady week. It's down around 75 cents. I think it's a good thing that it held that level.
We heard a rumor this week that Russia was going to suspend exports out of certain terminals.
Well, those Russian rumors, you hear that they're going to suspend exports, they're going to suspend, and you always get a little price rally out of that. And you could say that's a good thing, but it's a lot of unknowns. It's phytosanitary, their grading standards are saying they got to clean up a couple places. You can't say, is Russia just trying to get a higher price for their wheat, because they got a little rally out of the deal.
There was little movement in corn prices. Has corn bottomed out now?
Most analysts say that corn prices have bottomed out. One big advisory firm said that we had a head and shoulders bottom, which means we'll get about a 30 or 40 cent price increase out of corn. So I think corn prices have bottomed out.
What about soybeans establishing a short run uptrend?
Yeah, we've got about a 50 cent increase of soybeans off the bottom. I'm hesitant to say we've got a short run. Yeah, you've got a couple weeks uptrend there. I think we've got, and if it continues on up after 50 cents, if it breaks, like 9.30 or 9.40, something like that, I think we'll have an uptrend. Right now, yeah, we got upward movements. I don't want to call it a trend yet.
Last but not least, cotton prices mostly flat. Are cotton prices at the bottom? A lot of people interested in cotton now.
Yeah, we were up around 90 cents. We've gotten down to around 75 cents. That's where USDA is projecting the seasonal average price. So I think we could go a little lower in cotton if you just look what's going on. If the harvest comes in relatively big, I think we're close to the bottom, but we could go down a couple more cents. But I think we're pretty near there.
Okay, thanks a lot, Kim. We'll see you next week.
October is typically the time when we wean the calves, but it's also a time when we examine the cows to see which ones are potential culls that we want to remove from our herd at this particular time. I think it's important that we do proper cow culling, especially making sure that we get cows culled while they're still in good body condition. Therefore, they'll weigh the best when we sell them and bring the best possible price per pound when we actually take them to the market. One of the key questions that comes up when we're thinking about which cows we're going to keep and which ones we're going to send to market is the age of the cow. Is there a pattern that would tell us which age of cow is most likely to need to be culled? Well, there's actually some data sets that gives us a little bit of a hint about answering that particular question. Back in the 80s, a large ranching operation in Florida kept track of the reproductive performance of the cows in their herd over a 2-year period of time, looked at each year individually, and as you see on this particular graphic, there seems to be a tendency for the reproductive capabilities of cows to begin to taper off just a little bit after they're 8 years of age. Then the lines get a little steeper. Once they get to 10, the downward trend becomes more dramatic. And of course, by the time they reach 12 years of age, then this particular data set indicates that the cows are really losing that reproductive capability pretty sharply. And I think we need to look at that and consider that about each cow that goes through the chute this year on our operation. There's actually follow-up data that comes from the USDA up at the Clay Center Station in Nebraska with over 20,000 head of cows, and the pattern was really very, very similar. The reproductive capability of the cattle stayed pretty even till they were 8 years of age, then a slight drop off between 8 and 10. By the time they got to be 10 years of age, the downward slide was much more dramatic. So it seems to me that as we're looking at cows this fall or any fall when we're going to potentially cull some cows, when they get to be 8, we better start looking for other things that could be going wrong. Such things as check their mouth to see if the mouth is still sound. Is a cow have a bad udder? Is she in poor body condition even though the pastures have been good this summer and early fall? All of these things may be indications that she is a cow that we'll want to consider culling. Once she gets to 10 years of age, then I'd really start to be very, very critical and look for any other sign that this is a cow that we probably need to remove from the herd. And by the time that she's 12, then certainly I think that's just almost an automatic cull. She's reached that point in her life. She's done a good job for us. This would be a good time to make sure that we can go ahead and market her while she's still in good body condition. Hey, we look forward to visiting with you again next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
We're joined now by Amy Hagerman, our Ag Policy Specialist. And Amy, the current Farm Bill expired this past week, and there are some interesting consequences. So we wanted to have you on to kind of sort it all out for us. Give us a little bit of an overview.
Well, thanks. So there really are some interesting consequences as a result of the Farm Bill expiration on September 30th. There were a couple of different options of things that could have happened. We could have had a new 2018 Farm Bill out of the conference committee, or they could have extended the 2014 Farm Bill. But since the Farm Bill was actually allowed to expire, we're going to have different kinds of effects for different parts of the Farm Bill. The Farm Bill, as you know, is made up of a lot of different programs. So we have commodity titles, we have conservation, we have the nutrition programs. And there will be different impacts by each one of those programs. For programs that are permanently authorized and funded through appropriations, such as the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, formerly known as food stamps, or for the crop insurance program, you're not going to see a lot of impacts as a result of the expiration of the Farm Bill.
So with some of this in mind, and no doubt there's kind of a lot to sort through in the interim, what kind of message do you have for producers in this kind of, uneasy, uncertain time?
It does. It creates a lot of uncertainty, but the important thing is that most of these programs are funded through 2018. So we're not going to see a lot of radical or immediate changes because of this. There's still time for Congress to either pass a 2018 Farm Bill or pass an extension of the 2014 Farm Bill before we start to see a lot of impacts. In the next few months, they won't see a lot of changes in the different programs, other than perhaps some different kinds of notices they might receive from their crop insurance agent or from Farm Service Agency. CRP contracts expired on September 30th, and no new contracts can be put in place without either a Farm Bill or an extension of the prior Farm Bill. So you can expect to see some notices on that. We should still see October payments though.
Let's also talk about an upcoming event that our viewers may be interested in, where you will be talking about the Farm Bill and lots of other topics, and that's the annual Rural Economic Outlook Conference. Tell us about that.
So the Rural Economic Outlook Conference will be held October 17th. We're really excited about the program that has been put together there, and I hope that people will come and listen to an overview of different topics that affect us in Oklahoma and what's expected, including what we expect to hear on the Farm Bill as we get more news.
Okay, well, great information. Thanks a lot, Amy.
Thank you.
And for more information on the Rural Economic Outlook Conference, just go to sunup.okstate.edu.
With deer season, there's always a concern with diseases that affect deer. And Dwayne, there's a disease that's kind of popping up that's really has the attention of the wildlife community.
Yeah, it's called chronic wasting disease. And it's in the same group of diseases of things like Creutzfeldt-Jacobs that affects humans, and mad cow, probably heard about with bovine, scrapies in sheep. They're all very similar, caused by these sort of mutated proteins that are called prions.
And with this disease, I mean, it has a pretty devastating effect with deer.
Yeah, it's essentially a death sentence for a deer. And right now, we don't know that it can jump to humans, but the Centers for Disease Control, they can't rule that out with certainty, but thus far there's no information that leads us to believe that it affects humans, but it's devastating for deer populations.
So let's talk a little bit about where the disease is popping up and how it actually affects the deer.
Sure. So it's been detected in at least 23 states and several Canadian provinces. While we have not detected it in wild deer in Oklahoma, it is in every state surrounding us. So it's going to be quite difficult to keep it out.
What are some measures that hunters can do to keep it out? Is there anything that they can do?
Yeah, so the biggest issue right now is just controlling transport of infected animals. And there's two ways that might happen. One is a hunter harvested animal. So if you're going to an area that is known to have CWD, you need to get that animal tested, but you also need to dispose of the carcass at the point of harvest and only bring packaged meat and cleaned antlers back into the state. So that's the first thing you can do. The second thing is how we move live deer around. Right now, Oklahoma does not restrict live deer from being transported within and between the states, but you do have to fill out certain paperwork, and that's regulated by the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry. So that is something that we need to be vigilant about to make sure that those animals that are being transported are coming from CWD-free areas.
You mentioned that it's not, right now, it can't be transferred to humans, but in theory it could, and the CDC actually has some recommendations when harvesting meat.
Yeah, even though there's no information to suggest that humans can get it, they can't rule that out with absolute certainty. So the CDC has been very cautious, and they're recommending that you do not consume parts of the animal where these prions are known to accumulate in mass. So that's like the brain, the spinal column, or lymph nodes. In fact, they recommend you don't even come in contact with those parts of the animal, that you wear gloves at all times. So if you harvest an animal that is even close to a CWD area, we recommend that you only take the muscle tissue and that you make sure you wear gloves while you're handling it, and then again properly dispose of that carcass, get it underground, either buried at site or get it in an approved lined landfill.
And so we're not sounding the alarms here, the sky's not falling, but it is a concern for the wildlife community.
Absolutely. If you're a hunter or care about white-tailed deer, you should be very concerned, because it has caused serious population reductions in certain areas that it's been established longer. It's also affected the hunting community. Even though the disease is not known to infect humans, because that can't completely be ruled out yet, people are afraid, and so they're choosing not to hunt, and that's affecting local economies because of reductions in license and hotel and fuel expenditures during hunting season. So it's really affected the hunting culture and the economies of these areas where CWD has been established.
Okay, thanks, Dwayne. If you would like some more information about chronic wasting disease, go to the CDC website, or you can go to our website, sunup.okstate.edu.
Finally today, as many of you know, SUNUP's been on the air for decades, and this week we reached an important milestone. We had the opportunity to catch up with the 4 people who relaunched the show in its current format 10 years ago this week.
The 4 of us had this really great opportunity to get this amazing program back on the air. We were essentially given a blank slate, which was actually really cool because we were able to incorporate a lot of new ideas.
It was kind of the perfect time for that because there were shifts in technology, and we were able to bring the show back in 2008 in high definition.
And so having a chance to really rethink what the purpose of SUNUP could be, what role we could serve for the ag community, that was really exciting.
We wanted something that when they turn it on, they feel like they're talking to a neighbor, they're talking to a friend, they're talking to somebody that is willing to get in the field with them.
You're going to have to deal with dead stock. It's just a fact of life that these animals pass away from time to time.
And so I think because of the way the show was put together, the fact that it was a field, kind of a field day style show, I think that's why we decided that, you know what, we don't need suit and tie.
What can I say about my SUNUP teammates?
We're very fortunate with the show to have started with the people that we did.
It was a group of people that were very excited, very committed, and learning together.
There were 4 of us that started, Kathy, Austin, and Dave. And from the get-go, I think it was a really great team atmosphere.
But that original 4 felt like a dream team. You know, we each were very good at parts of the job.
Clinton brought a vast knowledge of not only broadcasting, but also agriculture, and delivered it in a way that was very personable.
And over the last 60 years, Doc Easley has seen a lot of history at this ranch.
This is the bull that's the best show bull that's ever been shown. Got the best record. He was shown 17 times and was champion 17 times.
Austin, he's hungry for that knowledge and able to relate his questions to the Oklahoma producer, and we needed that
information about what they do for the animal.
Okay. Now, normally when we meet out at the beef center and when we're talking in front of cows. Today we're here in Ag Hall. We've got a few backpacks with us. I guess this is an experiment to kind of explain what we're talking about.
And Kathy, oh my gosh, Kathy knew how to put a show together.
The group Merlin works with takes that food and donates it to local food banks. The leader of that group, 80-year-old George Cockrum.
she's one of the best producers in the country, in my opinion.
Not long after leaving SUNUP, I got married and had 2 beautiful children. We currently live in Gainesville, Florida, where I work for the University of Florida as the Director of Media Services, and we do a lot of video and studio projects for campus, and it's a lot of fun.
So I've got 3 great kids. I'm married. My wife, Mary Beth, she's originally from Fort Gibson, Oklahoma, and our kids now, my oldest is 10, 7, and 4. And so we're just living in Indiana, trying to get used to the winters.
Currently, I'm in Lubbock, Texas. I am a doctoral student at Texas Tech University studying agricultural communications. My family, you got to know my kids a bit through SUNUP. Whenever I had a chance, I'd throw them on screen. They're all doing great.
A few years ago, I was made senior producer here for SUNUP, and what I do now, I put together the show, I build the rundown, I set up stories. And then on top of that, about 3.5 years ago, Crystal and I had twin girls. People say, oh my gosh, twins, how do you do it? We don't know any different. So we just do the best we can, and it's actually kind of fun.
My takeaway from working at SUNUP, producers will ask questions, they'll seek answers, and they'll listen to the resources that are in the state. Not every state is that way. Not every state has those resources. I've traveled to other states and I've called Extension and asked for help, and they tell me, we don't do that anymore. And so I think that Oklahoma is unique, and I really believe the state should value the resources that they have in people and research and technology and information.
What a great look back, and we certainly look forward to the next 10 years. That'll do it for us this week. I'm Lyndall Stout. Remember, Oklahoma agriculture starts at SUNUP.